What's up, guys? It's time to talk about. It's time to talk about the latest Godzilla movie that I've seen. I don't know. We're gonna talk about Godzilla, X Kong, the new Empire. I don't know if you can even watch this on HBO. I watched. I don't think you can. I could be wrong. I don't know. I could look too before I start the review, but who cares really? Um, the last time I talked about I did a review for. Wow, this is really fucking bad so far. Jeez. All right. So it's no secret that I like Godzilla. I got a bunch of Godzilla stuff around the house. I've been watching those movies since I was a little baby. Um, so the last movie I did on here, like just for a movie review, was Godzilla minus one, and I don't think I was able to really convey or express that I did like Godzilla minus one. I just didn't like it as much as everybody else. I don't think it was a bad movie. It just wasn't like. I Shin Godzilla was so cool. I liked the way it was edited. I liked the pacing of it. It was just cool. And I think the dude from Evangelion directed that. I wanted to see more of that before I moved on, but that's cool. Um, that came out around 2017, I think. 2016, 2000. That doesn't matter. But that movie blew me away. And then after having a Godzilla movie as an adult that I really enjoyed, because the Millennium series was like whatever. There were some good movies in the Millennium era. We're talking Japanese Godzilla, and we'll move on. In the Millennium era, it was probably there's some good movies in there, but after the Heisei, I hope I'm saying that right, Heisei, the Heisei era, the '90s Godzilla. I always call it the '90s Godzilla. Those came out when I was a kid, and I fucking love those movies. I like each one of those movies. I like all of them. They're great. When the Millennium series came out, it was kind of cool because each movie was a different story. Like you didn't have, I think Tokyo SOS and Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla or something like that. Those two went together maybe, and then Final Wars was probably my favorite out of those. And then I like the one with the bugs. That was cool, I guess. But the '90s Godzilla, I like each one of those. Like Showa gets fucking crazy, right? Showa's fun, and it's a classic, like the original Godzilla series. But by the end of the Showa era, it got fucking crazy with Jet Jaguar and all that shit. Like it gets crazy. I like that movie. What is that? Godzilla versus Megalon. Like that shit's cool. I feel like Legendary is after watching this movie. Okay, so here we'll go over like Legendary got the rights to Godzilla, so they made an American Godzilla series, and you got this Godzilla with Bryan Cranston, and it was pretty good. It's a fun movie. Some people don't like it, I guess, but I dug it. I've always liked this movie. Um, Out of these five movies, I think Skull Island might be my favorite, which is pretty funny. But this is up there. I've only watched Godzilla King of the Monsters one time. I feel like this was a lot going on, a ton going on. They go more into the Monarch stuff, and Tywin Lannister's in it, and the little girl from Stranger Things was in it, right? I gotta watch these over again. I haven't watched these in a long time. But that was the second one. You have Ghidorah and all the monsters in it, and Godzilla's fucking throwing down with them. And then for the third movie in these movies, I guess if we're counting this, Kong Skull Island would be the third movie, I believe, which was really fun. Kong Skull Island is all just mayhem. I mean, it's a bunch of soldiers going to Skull Island in the Vietnam era, in the '70s, and they come across King Kong and they fight giant monsters. And Samuel L. Jackson really wants to kill King Kong for some fucking reason. He's just a douchebag. Um, but out of the Godzilla movies, you got Godzilla versus Kong, which is cool because the third original in the Showa era was Godzilla versus King Kong. It's classic. It's fun. It's the first colored Godzilla movie. The first two, Godzilla Raids Again, were black and white, and then we got into color. When you watch that movie, It came out. I think it came out in 1965. When you watch that movie after watching Godzilla Raids Again and Godzilla, or yeah, the original Godzilla King of Monsters, if you watch those two movies and then you watch Godzilla versus King Kong, you can kind of see where it starts to get fucking weird, right? I feel like this was pretty cool. There's a lot going on still. It's Godzilla versus King Kong, and then it turns into Godzilla and King Kong versus Mecha Godzilla. They didn't need the Mecha Godzilla in there. I think they're trying to do too much with these movies that there's a lot going on. And the stuff with Hollow Earth, which is from the original Godzilla movies, there is a Hollow Earth in one of them, I think. Is it Destroy All Monsters or All Monsters? I don't know. The Hollow Earth thing comes from the original Japanese series. It's fucking crazy, okay? So we have one normal movie, and you could even say Kong Skull Island's okay. It's like a fun action movie. These movies start to get crazy. The Monarch stuff is like whatever, man. There's like this company monitoring Godzilla, and it's normal stuff. I know that there's like different groups of people. Like you need something to keep the humans involved in the story. Otherwise, there's no like way to really enjoy the story if you don't have like the human dynamic, which is why Godzilla minus one did so well. But the other thing that Godzilla minus one did really well was they didn't go they didn't try and have too much going on, right? So you would think like, okay, if you like giant monsters, the more the better, right? But if you have like 50 giant monsters, it gets kind of fucking convoluted and weird, right? You can't follow all this. I don't think this did very well. I haven't really read any reviews on it. Nobody really talked about it. You know how I heard about this movie? I heard about this movie from an 11-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, and he thought the baby monkey was the coolest character in the movie, right? So while watching these movies, I know I'm a 40-year-old man, and I always say this when people are talking about Star Wars or when they're talking about Godzilla or whatever. You gotta like put yourself back in your 5-year-old shoes, right? You have to kind of dumb yourself down a little bit. And I don't mean that as an insult. These are kids movies, right? We're watching a children's movie, right? It's something that's been around a long time, and it's something that adults do enjoy. But I'm an idiot if I'm going to sit here and pick the plot of this movie apart. So, what I will say, to get the review out of the way, this movie's made by a lunatic. A crazy person made this movie. I have no clue who even directed this. I didn't do any research for this review. I bought this at Walmart, and I'm going to watch this with my kids tonight, my wife and kids, and we're going to probably laugh at it, right? Didn't do very well. And it's kind of cool as a fan of. I like the Japanese Godzilla probably a little bit better than these. These are fun. It's cool that Japan they had to wait a little bit because Legendary was making all these movies in Japan. Toho was like, "All right, we'll let you guys do your thing, and then we'll release a movie." And the movie that they released, like fucking, didn't even get an Oscar and shit. Like it did really well. It's a solid fucking movie. So it's kind of cool that the original people who made these movies they made a better movie, basically, right? With all that said, I wanted to talk about what happens in this movie, and that should paint a picture for you through my mouth. I'll illustrate what I witnessed last night for you all. I love this movie, by the way. I will say I liked it. I enjoyed my viewing of this disaster of a movie. The issue with this movie is they took what I would complain about from these other four movies and they just ran with it. Like they just keep going in the wrong direction. And I can't tell you what the right direction is because they already did King Kong versus Godzilla, right? But they made King Kong this like character. They made him very human. Like he has an axe now, and he's like setting traps for monsters and stuff. So they couldn't do another Godzilla movie, I guess, right? Legendary has like, well, we have to do the new Empire, and it's like you just killed your series basically with what you did in this movie. I feel. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised if Legendary does any more of these movies. I wouldn't be surprised if they go in a different direction, if they reboot it somehow, or um, I, now with all this said, I like when these movies go crazy. My favorite one of my favorite giant monster movies is War of the Gargantuas. And if you look at War of the Gargantuas and you think about it for a second, if you know anything about these movies, War of the Gargantuas is a sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World. Frankenstein Conquers the World is a Toho movie about Frankenstein's heart ends up in Japan and it becomes irradiated or some shit. And this little homeless feral boy eats it, and it makes him mutate into a giant monster. And you have this mongoloid looking like I don't know. I'm probably not allowed to say mongoloid anymore. They gave him a Frankenstein brow like the 1930s Boris Karloff Frankenstein, and he just looks very interesting. It's an amazing movie. Now, War of the Gargantuas is a sequel to that. And this is fucking crazy. Follow along here. Some of the monster from Frankenstein, the Frankenstein Conquers the World movie, some of his skin flaked off in the ocean when he was swimming around, and that skin mutated into two baby monsters, which are the gargantuas, right? So then you have a gold monster and a green monster. The green monster's evil. He eats people. My favorite thing about that movie is he picks the clothes out of his teeth after he eats people. He like puts people in his mouth and then throws their clothes on the ground after he eats them. And then the gold monster is good, and the gold monster likes humans, and the green monster hates humans. And so they have a showdown. It's called War of the Gargantuas. That is fucking crazy. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, it's only something that could come out of Japan. So, at least I used to think. But now you have Japan making a very, down to earth, like, drama taking place during during the repercussions of World War II, and you have like this kamikaze jet fighter who didn't follow through with what he set out to do, and he feels like he shamed himself and his country, but he ends up raising a little girl with a woman, and like there's all this deep like storytelling in this movie. It's really good. Godzilla is a force of nature again, which is what Godzilla is supposed to be, right? He's just this unstoppable force that the humans have to figure out how to stop, right? Or he's going to destroy everything. As you watch the Showa movies, he becomes a superhero. He becomes a guardian of sorts. He's fighting other monsters. So Legendary has definitely taken that to heart. So, as stupid as this movie is, accepting that it's kids don't know what the fuck I'm talking about right now, right? Accepting that this movie is ridiculous, they are kind of following along with what the original series was doing, right? But you end up with this crazy fucking movie, and so now the Americans who made this, or whoever made this, I don't know, it could be Ford. I don't. Where's the director? I actually do know who this director is. Adam Wingard, the director of this the lunatic behind this nonsense. Let's see here. You're Next. I've never seen Pop School. I'm kind of interested in seeing Pop School. He did a movie called Homesick, which was a slasher movie. He was 19 when he did Homesick, I believe. Your Next was really good. That came out in 2011. Your Next was good, and then he did a part on VHS. He was the director of the Blair Witch Project remake. He did the not so popular Death Note movie on Netflix. Oh, and he was the director of the last one. He was the director of Godzilla vs. Kong. So, I guess he's just doing these legendary Godzilla movies now? I don't know, man. Your Next is really good. So, I guess that's... And I like VHS and VHS too, so... Okay. Just thought I'd look that up really quick so we knew what we were dealing with here. Yeah, alright. You end up with this fucking crazy movie, and then, Japan, who's normally doing the weird stuff, they made the most down-to-earth, best Godzilla probably ever. Most successful. Like I said, Shin Godzilla is my favorite, and that movie's pretty crazy. But he's still, it's Godzilla. Godzilla is a force in that movie. There's no other monsters. He's the threat. We gotta stop him, right? Alright, I'm gonna get into it now. I'm gonna change my hat. I need you guys to listen to... You just relax, okay? Take a chill pill. Relax for a second. All right. I love that hat. My wife crocheted me that hat, but I don't feel like you guys are taking me very serious while I was wearing it. So I need you to take me a little more serious. So we got the San Jose Sharks hat on. Fix my sleeves once again. Okay. Okay. So this movie right here. Keep in mind, I saw Godzilla versus King Kong when it came out on HBO. So during pandemic, years ago. I've only watched it once. I have it on DVD. I don't even think I've watched that DVD. I think I watched it on HBO Max, and I haven't watched it since. I don't even. I think it ended with King Kong in that hollow Earth. There's like a alternate realm underneath the Earth, and I don't know the science behind all this shit because whatever. But basically, King Kong is in an alternate place that's in the center of the Earth, where there's other giant monsters, and he's the fucking man down there now, and he has an axe, and he's like, whatever. That's what I remember. And there was a little girl in that movie that could talk to King Kong. She's like the last of the tribes people that lived on the island, or I don't know. Weird. So you have a little girl who can talk to King Kong. So this movie starts with King Kong. He's doing his King Kong thing. He's fighting monsters and eating them and wrecking shit. And he sets a trap. There's all these traps set that so he can eat these monsters, right? And he realizes his tooth is hurting him. He has like a cavity, so he's sad because his tooth is hurting him, right? So you go back up to the surface, and there's this little girl who's in a Monarch. Monarch's this like company that like watches out for monsters and takes care of them. I guess, um, and I think they got different actors from King Kong or Godzilla versus King Kong or Godzilla King Kong versus God, whatever. But the woman, I'm assuming this character was in the last movie. I don't remember her at all, but she's taking care of the little girl who could talk to King Kong. I think that's the same little girl. I could be wrong on that even. I don't know. And she's having these weird visions, and her teacher's like, "Listen, this girl's fucking weird. She's not working out. She's scaring the other kids. You need to get like this girl. We have a multitude of different cultures here, and this is the weirdest little child I've ever met." The girl can't talk. She uses sign language, and she's trying to express to the lady who's raising her, like, "Hey, I wish I remembered their names. I just watched this movie last night. Is their names on here? Whatever. The short-haired lady, Doctor Monarch lady. Um, I can't remember anybody's name. That's pretty bad. Okay, well, the lady who's raising the little girl is like, listen, like she's trying to understand this little girl who can't communicate very well, and the little girl's having these crazy visions, and she's like freaking out. So they start talking about possibly taking her to Hollow Earth so she can go have a conversation with King Kong for some reason, which is like, this place is really dangerous. There's a bunch of giant monsters. Like, it's not safe. But the lady's like thinking about taking this little child back to Hollow Earth for some whatever stupid reason. All of a sudden, alarms start going off. King Kong is coming back to Earth. Because his tooth is hurting him, right? So he comes out of the portal all of a sudden, and this veterinarian guy who has really good taste in music. There's a bunch of 80s music in this movie for some reason. Anyways, he comes in on this like spaceship thing, and they pull King Kong's tooth out and give him a metal tooth. And I think his name was Trapper. I remember Trapper. Anyways, there's also like a podcast guy who's like obsessed with Godzilla, and he gets roped into the situation. Should I look up these names? Let's look up the names. That makes sense to look up the names. We got a minute here, right? Lady taking care of the little girl's name is Gia. Eileen. Hello, Eileen. The podcast guy is Bernie. So we have Trapper, Eileen, Bernie, and Gia. Okay, so that works. Whatever. They fix Kong's tooth, and when Kong's going back, they just all decide to go. So Eileen takes Gia with Bernie. Bernie begs her to go because it's good for his podcast or whatever. I'm assuming Bernie must have been in the third movie, right? I don't remember, but he seems familiar. So I think there was like a radio DJ guy, and then Trapper, and they just The four of them travel to the Hollow World with Mikhail. Mikhail pilots them in, and when they get there to the Hollow World, they're following King Kong for a minute. They're suddenly they mention an outpost. There's an outpost in Outworld or a Hollow World or whatever, and they realize everybody there's dead, and they're like, "Well, we might not. This might not be the safest situation, you know." Um, so while they're doing that, they're investigating the outpost. Godzilla is like supercharging, and as you follow along, like, do you see how hard it is to express the plot to this movie? Like, or tell you, give you a fucking like. So Godzilla is like fucking going to kill a monster up in the Arctic Ocean who has a bunch of radiation stored there, and he wants to become supercharged. They just coined the phrase supercharged, like he's supercharged. And they just know what he's doing. He's randomly killing shit, but they know the Monarch is fully aware of what Godzilla's up to. And that's how he kills this monster and he gets the pink horns, right? Because he's all supercharged. He's ready to throw down. Um, so the group in the Hollow World realize there's an even hollower world. There's Hollow World, and then there's a Hollow World to the Hollow World, right? So Godzilla's trap that he had set earlier, or King Kong's trap that he had set earlier, caved in, and he decides to venture down into this new world that's beneath the new world that they. So there's another world beneath the world, right? So King Kong goes down there and he finds more monkeys or apes, excuse me. Finds more gorillas like himself, and he's excited, but they attack him. And there's a little shit stir there down there. I forgot what the little monkey's name was, but there's like a baby gorilla, and he's funny. He's a funny little. He's like comic relief. Him and Bernie are and Trapper. I guess there's a lot of comic relief in this movie. Like I said, it's made for kids. And so the monkeys, or the apes, attack King Kong, and he fucks them up, and he's like beating them up with the little kid King Kong, the little baby Kong. He's smacking the other apes up with it, and he tells the little baby in their way, like they grumble at each other, you know. And he's like pointing with his axe, and basically, I'm assuming he's telling the baby like, "Where the fuck did you come from? I need some friends. I'm looking for some friends." And the baby is like, "All right, let's go." And so he follows the little baby to a lake, and the baby lures him into the water, like drinking some water. And King Kong has his back to the rest of the lake, and a giant serpent comes up, and the little fucker tricked him to get killed, right? Well, guess what? King Kong kills that thing. And he's like, "Whatever, baby. You're still telling me you're gonna show me where the rest of these people are. I need a family. I don't want to be alone anymore, right?" So him and the little baby are doing their thing. The people from the humans, we'll just refer to Bernie, Eileen, Trapper, and Gia as the humans from now on. They are going to. Mikhail gets eaten by a tree. He's telling them he's in charge, and then a tree eats him. And Bernie's like making jokes like, "I don't want to get eaten by a tree." And the four of them stumble upon a temple magically, and I guess this temple is beneath the Hollow World too. It's in the same world as. It's somewhere in this fucking weird situation that we've created for this movie. Uh, and there's like a thing over like a force field, and the little girl Gia knows to rip it open, I guess, and so the four of them decide it's a good idea to go in there because she's has visions, right? So the group of adult scientists are like, well, we'll go with the visions, right? And so they go through the portal thing, and they find people that are like Gia. So they've been saying the whole movie Gia is the last of her kind. Well, no, they're all down here in Hollow Earth, and they live in a special like temple. And so Eileen is looking at all the pictures in the temple, and she's able to tell you the whole story. Godzilla fought King Kong people a long time ago. And there's this mean red gorilla named Scarred. Is it Scarred? I forgot. There's a big red fucking gorilla with the chain thing. And at the tip of the chain is a crystal spike from an ice dragon thing. I forgot her name. Shimu. And Shimu can breathe. She can freeze stuff. Like Godzilla sprays radiation, this thing sprays ice and freezes things. And this fucking red gorilla got locked down in Hollow Earth number 2, the hollower Earth by Godzilla because Godzilla didn't want him taking over the world, right? So he's making all these gorillas his slaves for centuries, and they're just digging out, I guess, for hundreds of years, and they're all looking sad and fucked up. And so King Kong and the baby gorilla end up there, and King Kong's like, "Fuck this," and he throws down with the red gorilla, and the red gorilla kicks his ass, of course, and Shimu, I think it's Shimu, right? Shimu, the ice dragon. We were calling her the ice dragon because it was just like we're trying to follow along with this plot. The ice dragon freezes King Kong's arm, and he's like, "Fuck!" and he leaves. He runs. He tucks tail, and he's like, "Man, I can't do this." And so he goes back up to he finds the humans somehow. I don't even know how he knows where the humans are, but the little girl's there, and they start talking. And it was around this point where I looked at my wife. I was like, "I bet you Mothra's in this movie." She's like, "What?" I was like, "She's got these weird visions. Mothra does that to people. She gives them visions. She's like a god thing that is friends with." It's basically Godzilla's girlfriend, and my wife's like, How's that his girlfriend?" I was like, "They're homies, man. Mothra and Godzilla go way back. I bet you Mothra's gonna show." And sure enough, she's having visions of Mothra. Um, oh, and by the way, King Kong's arm's fucked up, and all of a sudden, the veterinarian guy Trapper is like, "Yo, we got a robot arm in that outpost that we were at earlier, conveniently, right? We can fix his arm right now. We just gotta go get that robot arm." So they so King Kong now has a robot arm that is like high powered. They augment him. He becomes augmented. And him and the baby. Well, just him, I think. I think the baby might stay there. I don't know. He goes back up to the surface to get Godzilla's attention, and he's like, "Hey!" Or well, when he leaves Hollow Earth, he's at the pyramids for some fucking reason. I guess they thought that would look cool. He just pops up at the pyramids out of the dirt, and he's like, "Roar!" And Godzilla's somewhere else, and Godzilla roars back, and Godzilla starts going after him. Like, "Fuck this, another giant monster! I'm fucking Godzilla. I'm gonna kill him." And he shows up, and King Kong's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" And Godzilla fucks him up. Well, uh, the little girl summons Mothra somehow, and Mothra comes up and is like, "Godzilla, dude, chill. King Kong's trying to get your help." So Mothra, Godzilla, King Kong, the little whatever you want to call the baby, the little weird baby, they're like, we're gonna fuck this guy up. And so the bad gorilla with the red fur comes up in Brazil, starts freezing shit with his ice dragon. While I explain this story to you guys, I don't want to spoil anything. I'm telling you the whole story, right? Adults made this movie. A large group of adults made this movie, and I'm sitting over here trying to make my own movies. Like, why can't I make movies? And this guy had like millions of dollars, and he's like, "I want an ice dragon." He sat in a room, a conference room, and went, "Listen, I want ice dragon in this movie. I want I want the bad gorilla to have really long arms, and he's red, and he's evil. He's a bad boy, and he can control the ice dragon, right? And then I want a little girl to summon Mothra, and I want Mothra to show up, and I want Godzilla to have pink horns, and I want I want King Kong to have a robot arm, and we need to have token black guy comedic relief because black people are funny, and uh, we are going to show up at the pyramids, and we're going to show up in Brazil, and we're going to show up because the last movie did this, right? When they showed up in China and they showed up all over the world. So, and then other people went, "You're right, millions of dollars. Here you go." Okay, so the ice dragon's like freezing people in Brazil, and they're like, "Oh shit!" And then Godzilla, King Kong, and his crew, Mothra, they all show up and they throw down. They have their final fight. Um, the ice dragon ends up getting freed. Like King Kong uses robot arm and breaks the control the red guy has over him, and then the ice dragon freezes him, and King Kong smashes the red gorilla, the evil false king gorilla, and he gets his axe back, and they all go back to Hollow Earth. And then Mothra goes, she makes the force field back over the temple, and the little girl's like, "I can't stay with my people. I gotta stay with Eileen. She's where she goes, I go. We're homies. We're together forever." King Kong is like petting the ice dragon at the end, and he freezes people. Kind of got a Moses thing going on there. He killed the pharaoh, I guess, and the little girl stays with Eileen, and then Godzilla goes back to sleep, and he goes to Italy. He It's kind of funny. He was sleeping in a coliseum, and he just goes back and lays down, goes back to sleep in the middle of this coliseum in Italy. Um, and then yeah, King Kong has his robot arm and his little new friend. Um, and then they ended the movie. And as of somebody who likes to write stories and come, where do they go? What do they do now? They killed their own story, like they murdered it. They let a lunatic come in and write this story, and then they fucking destroyed it. I don't even. You could say the plot is a red monkey with an ice dragon is going to come to the surface and freeze everybody. I guess was the plot. There's a lot of shit going on there. Like, as I already mentioned, though, this is a kids movie, so I there you go. That's what we watched last night. It was. I posted on Facebook, "Hey, I'm gonna watch this movie tonight," and my friend Tim was like, "Prepare to be really confused." I kind of want to go watch some of these other ones and see if I feel like with each one it's gotten worse. Kind of. I think Skull Island's my favorite, right? And I'm a bigger fan of. I love King Kong, but I'm probably a bigger fan of Godzilla than King Kong. I don't know. Weird. Okay, here's your movie review. That was really long. I gotta cut this down.